So thank you all so much for joining. It's awesome to have you all here. So what are we gonna cover today? We're gonna cover what is open source and GitHub, why you should care, how it can help you accelerate your career, how to get into open source, and how to stand out. And my favorite part, Q&A. But those people who know me will hear me say this all the time. Please don't wait until the end for your questions. Ask as we go along. And I'll try to keep an eye on the chat. Put a Q in front of your question so I notice it in the chat. If I miss it, I'm sorry. Just copy and paste it a few minutes later in the chat. Hopefully I'll notice. And answer each other's questions is a great way to network and get different perspectives, because your perspective, no matter where you are in your journey, really adds value. And we're going to talk more about adding value shortly as well. And remember, there are no stupid questions, just stupid answers from me. Okay, really quick brief intro about myself. I'm a full stack developer with over 15 years experience. I got into open source 11, 12 years ago. There was no GitHub or Git back then. It was definitely very, very different. I started freelancing and contracting about the same sort of time. I share my knowledge and experiences on my YouTube channel, so feel free to go check that out. I'm GitHub Star, and I'm GitHub Star of the Year. That's one out of about 55 million people on GitHub. So that's my recent achievement. And my goal is actually to get more people into open source so they can accelerate, well, so you can accelerate your skills so you can get the job, client, and money that you deserve. As exciting or as boring as that sounds of what I do, my biggest regret is not getting into open source sooner and sharing my learnings on YouTube sooner. Those are both my biggest regrets. And if you're not into, creating videos, write blog posts, share code snippets, whatever it is, but share your journey out there. It will only help you. And we're gonna dig a bit deeper into that. Let me check the chat. Hey Janine, awesome to have you there. You can mute Discord notifications. Is it for me? Have you got my notifications coming through? Have I done a fail? I think you have a sound effect there for a fail, but hopefully you shouldn't have notifications from me because I haven't got Discord open. Yeah. But let me know if something's coming through and I'll try to sort it out. Okay. Let's see. So let's talk about the challenges about being in tech. I love being in tech, and let me know in the chat if you love being tech. But there are some challenges. And I'm saying in tech, I'm not saying developers, because in tech, I want to include all the different areas in tech. So to build a project, there are going to be for people from testers all the way to technical writers and everything else in between. And in tech, we always must be learning because everything is moving so fast. I know that's part of the fun, but it can also be really challenging at times. And let me take an example. Like we might be app developers of Android or iOS, but let's take web developers, for example, because that's where I'm from. We need to know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, the latest library, the latest framework, SEO, deployments, accessibility. We might not have to be experts in all those areas, but we usually have an understanding of those areas as well. So there's just so many things to learn. And I want to make it clear that it is hard. It's fun, but it is hard. So if you are going a bit slower than other people, don't compare yourself to others. As long as you're moving forward, that's the most important. And it is hard. And then there's job hunting on top, and it is a pain. It's very noisy. And we're going to talk about how to help you stand out, because job hunting or asking for a pay rise, takes time, it takes energy. But what if it could be easier and funner? Fun is not a word. More fun. Yes, I mean, what happens if those people can come to you? And we're gonna work towards that. Oh, there are notifications coming through, are there? Ooh. Melissa, thanks for sharing my YouTube channel. I really appreciate that. Okay, let me see if I can remove Discord notifications. Apologies. I told you, with all this tech, there's going to be technical issues. Okay, so hopefully now you should have no more notifications. Let me know if that's better. I use a Mac, but I'm streaming. I'm doing the call like a stream on my Windows PC, and I don't have anything installed on there apart from Discord and Slack, and they're closed. So I don't know. See, we can't know everything. There's too much to learn. So what is open source, right? So now we know that the challenges of being in tech. Let's talk about what is open source. Open source is social coding. It's a social network. I'm just going to check the chat and see, make sure. No, you can still hear them. Okay. From now on, hopefully, Alex, you can't hear them. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. So yeah, GitHub and open source is like social coding. It's like Instagram, but on steroids. And people who know me know I say that all the time. And we do, as people, we do like social platforms. We get excited when we get a new like, or our latest post has better vanity metrics than the previous one. And it's the same on GitHub. We love it when we get stars in our projects or forks. I know I do. But open source is not just about code. And that's one thing I want to make really crystal clear. I know it started probably as code, but now it's not just about code. It can be about documentation, automated testing, communication, collaboration. There are recipes on there. There are legal documents. There are so many things. My video editor uses GitHub, and that's how we collaborate on what videos we're going to edit, how we edit them, feedback, etc., and so on. And remember, please ask questions as we go along, and I can share my screen and show you some stuff on GitHub as well. So I believe open source is for everybody. And hopefully I've proved that by saying that my video editor uses it. It is about collaboration. I think it's such a great platform. I see some messages in the chat. I want to come back to that in a second. Because yeah, it's about collaboration. So and what we say in our community is collaboration first, code second. And I will give you an example. So people who are familiar with GitHub, and if you're not, I'll explain this in a bit more detail shortly. But usually when you're going to do a piece of work, you raise an issue. And this is the discussion point. So before you do any work, you raise an issue, a ticket, effectively, and you start the discussion. And you have a discussion. And then once it's agreed what changes you're going to make, you raise a pull request. And a pull request is you're making some changes and you're saying that these are the changes that I'm putting up for review. But when you make the pull request, it's about discussion again. So it's raising the issue is a discussion. You make the changes, you raise a pull request, and it's discussion again. And then you talk about the changes that you actually made. So if you notice, it's a lot about collaboration and communication. So why should you care about open source? You probably use lots of languages, libraries, frameworks, tools, and they're probably all open source. You probably just never thought about the licensing or the payment or anything like that. It's just everybody uses it, you're using it too. And that's great. But getting involved in open source can really accelerate your learnings. And I mean it. And I'm saying learnings. I'm not saying your technical skills. I don't want to use the word soft skills because soft skills are really hard. So yeah, it improves all your skills and makes you better at everything that you need to do. So from technical skills all the way to communication. And you can also grow your network from that. Little kind of side note, all the clients, job offers, etc. that I've got have all been because of my open source work on GitHub, nowhere else. So I mentioned it's not just about code. So let me give an example. Eddie Hub, thanks everyone. Thanks Janine. I really, really appreciate it. And Sid Huff and Alex, awesome. Eddie Hub for the win. Yes, in Eddie Hub, everyone who joins, no matter where you are in your journey, in your career, everyone's a mentor because you can help everyone, and everyone's a mentee as well. So if you want an inclusive community, feel free to come and say hi, and we'll get you involved in open source. So we'll give you an example of what I was saying before. So when I'm hiring for my clients, I get sent from HR for recruiter, people's CVs and LinkedIn profiles. But I'm not really looking at that. I go straight to their GitHub. I'm not interested in that. And you may think, well, why? Because it's very kind of old-fashioned and out of date. Because on LinkedIn and on your CV, people can write anything they want. I mean, someone could write, hey, I'm the president of the UK. I learned recently we don't have a president in the UK, so that's a different story. But you can write anything is my point. But on GitHub, it shows me who you really are and how you communicate and also your technical skills. But I'm more interested in how you communicate. And let me dig a bit deeper. Because I'm not looking, when I'm on your GitHub profile, I'm not looking for the things that you think I'm looking for. Most people think I'm looking at their code to be perfect. And that's why people don't share their projects, because they're not going to share it until it's perfect. But trust me, your project will never be perfect if you're learning. Because whatever you do today, you might think is perfect. But tomorrow, if you've learned something, okay, not tomorrow, like next week, if you've learned something, then your code won't be perfect. But actually, I'm really looking for how your code looks like today and how it compares to a month ago, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, because I want to see that you're still learning. And by sharing your project publicly, even if it is just a side project, a bit of fun, whatever you're learning, then people can also give you feedback. So it's about improving your technical and non-technical skills a lot faster. Technical, like I said, because you get feedback from people, different points of view. Non-technical, because you'll get feedback from people and different points of view. Okay, yes, I said both of those twice, but that's because it will help you on both fronts. It really, really will. To communicate with the community, get their feedback, how you take that feedback, how you reply to them. And remember, we're all over the world, so not everyone's language is English. So you'll get to practice collaborating with loads of different people, different perspectives. Thanks everyone for sharing the links. I really, really appreciate that. Okay. So I look for two things when hiring. So I mentioned I look at your GitHub profile, and I mentioned that I look at how your code is now compared to 3 months ago. Are you still learning? That's really important. And how you communicate. So I know I've mentioned this, but I really want to make it really important that the communication part is so important. That do you give context when you're writing an issue, or is it just like 3 words that make sense at that time, but won't make sense to you later, or won't make sense to other people who were not involved in the conversation? How do you receive feedback is also super important, and how you review other people's pull requests. You don't have to be a project maintainer to review other people's projects. You can still give a review on people, and I can show you that in a second. You can still review people's pull requests. You can still reply to people's issues. It's really important to get in the conversation, but make it concise. Don't write like an essay, but also give context, because you don't want to have the distracting conversations where someone writes something and someone says, well, what do you mean? Or I meant that. I still don't understand. Did you mean this? Just back and forth. And you get like, a whole conversation. Whereas if someone just gave context at the beginning, let me give you an example. If we discuss something now in the chat, for example, and then I wrote on an issue saying, following our conversation, I think you should do A. Well, we've both probably in 1 or 2 days have had so many conversations with other people, we've probably forgotten what the conversation I'm talking about. And people who weren't involved in that conversation, be it on Discord, Slack, Twitter, or whatever, or even in the office, or Zoom call, they're not going to know what you mean. So contributing to an open source project, or in the community, your project or somebody else's, you'll really understand that you need to give context to a wider group of people. And that just helps when you're working on a project for your company. If someone's been on holiday or they weren't involved in that meeting or discussion, they can just pick up things really quickly. So I'm not saying don't have the conversation on the issue or the pull request, but you want the quality conversation, not the kind of confusing one, and then it just kind of pollutes the whole timeline. Hopefully that makes sense. So what next? Have I missed anything in the chat? No, lots of positive message. I really appreciate that. And I mentioned you can review other people's work. You can, if someone logs a bug and you're using the same tool, see if you've got that bug with your browser version, your Node version, Ruby version, or whatever it is installed. And if you haven't, you can say, hey, with these versions, I don't have this bug. Or with these versions that are different or the same, I have these issues. And again, you're getting involved in the conversation, and you're building up your profile, you're growing your network, you're helping the branding, your personal branding. And no matter what your experience is, your point of view adds value. I saw recently someone had a repo, and they said, on the README, you got to clone the repository, git clone, and then you do npm install. And a lot of people were raising questions. Well, I do npm install and it doesn't work, but they didn't realize that they had to, cd into the directory that just got created via the git clone. And a lot of people might just say, well, that's just a given, it's obvious. But it's not obvious to people who don't know. It's obvious when you know how. I mean, just like driving a car or riding a bike, if you know how to do it, it's easy. But if you don't know how to do it, it's really hard. And so your fresh pair of eyes and point of views, when you're running through their documentation, when you're trying to understand what the project is, by you asking those questions adds value. But take it even further. When you ask a question, you get the answer, or you figured it out and you understand it, add it to the documentation. So for the next person after you, it makes it a lot easier for them, and you kind of lower the barrier to entry for everyone. We want open source and all our projects and tools to be super inclusive. Aha, question. Brilliant. Love questions. Keep the questions coming. So thank you so much, Melissa, for the questions. In addition to GitHub, is there anything else you look at, for example, the contribution Stack Overflow? It's a really good question. I used to, but now I feel with GitHub having issues, project boards. And again, if people don't know what these terms are, let me know in the chat and I can share my screen and show you. But, customizing your own GitHub profile, all these sorts of things, I feel that it's not just about code on GitHub. It is communication, collaboration, documentation, automated testing, all that sort of stuff is on there. So I actually mostly look at that. But if they've included it on their CV or their LinkedIn, I will go have a look, absolutely. But I won't go and search for them if they haven't included it. But if they haven't included their GitHub link on their CV or LinkedIn, I will go search for it if I think they're a suitable candidate. But if they haven't included it and their CV or LinkedIn doesn't look very impressive, then I probably won't. So if you do, so I'd recommend everyone including their GitHub on their CV and try and have some regular activity. And we're going to dig into that in a second. But hopefully that answers your question. If not, Melissa, let me know. Michael, yes, there is a really great library we use in the Eddie Hub community, which we have on a Discord bot, and we have it in our GitHub organization called Alex.js, and it checks for words like this. I mean, yes, having simple or trivia or easy, it is when you know how, but when you don't, it's really, really hard, and it kind of belittles or makes the other person feel smaller, and you don't want to do that. So definitely use something like that to just do some sanity checks as well, and it shows that you're using inclusive terminology. Because people say to me, hey, Eddie, I tagged you on Twitter or LinkedIn or, on GitHub, but you didn't really kind of engage as much as you do with other people. Well, kind of because you wrote, hey guys on it, and, the community and open source is about including everybody. So no, you're not going to get interaction from me. And that's a standpoint I'm taking. And I'm being really strong. So hopefully you'll do the same as well. Another question from Siddharth. Can you let us know the importance of documentation as part of open source? Oh, amazing question. Thank you so much, Siddharth. Documentation is actually more important than code. I really believe this, because if you've got a great feature, but nobody knows how to use it. I mean, let's just take a crazy exaggerated example. Let's say that you've invented the next Google, but if no one knows how to use it, if you haven't explained like how exciting it is, why people should dig deeper into it, the README is really important. That's the first impression. Your first impression of your profile is the green squares that you have, which doesn't add value, but it's the first impression people have. Then when they get a good impression, they'll dig deeper and find out what you're working on. And the README is the first impression. And so it's really important to have a concise kind of high level of what the project is, how to get started. And that's really important to have that documentation. And then with links to, say, a docs folder or the wiki. I use the wiki a lot less now because you can't review people's changes. Whereas if you treat your docs should be treated just like code, and the test should be treated just like code, and it should be reviewed by other people, not just to make sure that you're not using, say, non-inclusive words and words like easy, but also to check it's correct, but also for knowledge transfer. It's really important to people to be aware of what's going on. So yes, it is really, really important. Documentation is super important. So there was there's some things we say in the community, in the open source community. You know how you have test-driven development where you write your tests first and then your code. We have documentation-driven development where we should write the docs first. It might be very kind of slim and just to be a skeleton outline. You kind of write your code and you fill in the details. So yeah, documentation is so important. And it's such a great way to get involved in open source and the community, because it's about adding value. It really is about adding value. And someone says, well, I'm only fix a typo, but that adds value because you're adding an improvement. And I'll tell you a secret. Let me tell you a secret. When I got involved in open source at the beginning, I fixed a typo. I swear my second and third, maybe even my 10th contribution, again, no pull requests in GitHub back at the time when I did this, were fixing typos. But what made me get more involved in open source was people saying thank you, that really helped. So people who, like, if something's spelt wrong and English is your first language, then you probably get what it's saying. But if it's not your first language, it doesn't make sense to you. So again, it's being more inclusive. So documentation is a great way to get started. And usually documentation is one of the things that are lacking the most. So people will really, really welcome any improvements you have on documentation. Any typos in my repos or our organization repos, fix them, please. Welcome them. Absolutely. Oh, there's still some pings coming from somewhere. Oh, I don't know what to say. Sorry, I'm not a Windows person. I only use my thing for live streaming. Is it really annoying? I'm really sorry, everyone. No one's mentioned that before. So I am not sure. Let me try and hopefully it's not too many. But thanks for letting me know. There was something beeping. Oh, Discord notifications. I've closed Discord. I really don't get, like, let me go back to here. Like, there's no Discord open here. I don't know if you can see the bar on the bottom. But yeah, Windows, it just leaves stuff running in the background. Sorry, I'm a Mac user, but I have to stream through via Windows. So really sorry, everyone. Apologies. I've opened Discord on my Mac, so hopefully the notification will come through my Mac. I really don't get Windows. So if anyone can help me, please add some value to me and let me know how I can close Discord, even though I've actually closed it. And Slack, I still get some of those notifications coming up in the corner. I probably should uninstall them from the Windows, because I don't use it on there anyway. Apologies again for everyone. Apologies again, everyone. So yes, add value, and it's about your point of view really adds value. So if you're only kind of, 1 month into your career, you can still add value. You can look at it with a fresh pair of eyes. I love getting new people to my project, or if you've got new people joining the team, I love it how they can give value to that project by starting. On the first day, I usually say, have a look at this our repo, our project. Let me know, what you think, what it's about. And I say, well, usually I should get an intro, right? You should give me an introduction to what the project's about. And I say, no, if you can't figure out what the project does and how to use it, how to set up from the README and the docs, there's nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with us and our project, and we want to improve it for the next person. So yeah, fresh pair of eyes really, really helps. Okay, I got some tips. Task Manager and stop the process. Task Manager on Windows. I don't know anything about Windows. Sorry. Okay, I'll keep going. I'm conscious of time as well. I want to add so much more value to all of you as well. But don't forget, you can connect with me afterwards and ask more questions if you want to dig into deeper. I'll try disconnecting from the Discord server. I could log out. Aha! I don't even know how to open Discord on here. They're all going to kind of laugh at me. But all the gear and no idea, right? It wouldn't be kind of a live call without. Okay, so now Discord's open. Can I log out? How do I log out on Discord? Don't know. Actually, I don't even know how to log out. Sorry. I can mute it. I have no idea how to do this on Windows. Let me close it again. Sorry, no idea. Okay, I know what you're thinking, that you're new to tech, and like I said, it's about adding value, and you really, really can. I believe that, and hopefully, hopefully I've got that across. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but hopefully it makes sense. And asking questions is adding value, which is why I love doing like weekly live streams, because the questions I get from people really make me think about things differently, and when they share their context and their perspective, again, it helps me improve. So look at projects, README or their docs folder is a great way to get started. And you can reply to people's issues as well, give them feedback, give them suggestions. I love the people in our community who sometimes, even on my issues, say, Eddie, what do you mean by this? And I read my issue like a day later, I'll be like, what did I mean to this? And I get better at using that. And so definitely learn Markdown, because Markdown is everywhere on open source and GitHub. It is used everywhere, and you need like kind of, I think there's 6 or 7 or 8 different syntax. Again, if you've got time and people want to see that, I can share my screen and I can show you kind of the Markdown syntax, and it's used everywhere. Make your issues and pull requests and your documentation all stand out by using Markdown. And again, if you've come across some documentation that isn't formatted well, format it better, but be consistent. If you like format kind of one part of documentation, make sure you're consistent and format the others as well. And when you add value, to the community and to the project, people will want to help you when you get stuck or you have questions. So a lot of people, again, in the open source community, they want to learn something, so they have the energy to start something. Like one of our projects didn't have automated testing, and so I want to do this. Can someone help me? And so we set it up. They got started. They wrote some tests, and then they wanted to write more complex tests. We then helped them. So they were learning, and we were helping them, but they were helping us by adding more tests and so forth. So it's again about that collaboration. It helps grow your network and your personal brand. And so it's really important that on your GitHub, your LinkedIn, your Twitter, etc., make sure, even your Discord. I know Discord's a bit of a swear word on this talk because of all the pings, so apologies. Eddie, a bit of a fail there. It's important to have your name the same. So when someone sees you adding value to their projects on GitHub, if you connect with them on LinkedIn, they'll be like, yeah, I'll connect with that person because they really added value. And that's important. I feel bad for some people who have different names across every single platform, and I ignore them on LinkedIn or DM on Twitter because I don't associate with they're the same person. Make it easier for the other person. If you're writing an issue, writing a pull request, make it easier. And please keep your pull requests really small. Remember, it's about, I see some things coming in the chat. I'll check that in a second. But remember how I keep saying it's about adding value? I had someone in our community who said, I want to write the contributors file. I'll come back in like 1 or 2 weeks, which in open source world means like 3 or 4, which is fine. And we were going to talk about work-life balance in a moment as well, and mental health and so forth. But I want to write a whole page or 2 pages. It's going to be the most best contributing file ever. It's like, wait a second. At the moment, we have no file. So a big pull request is going to take longer to get reviewed, longer for people to understand, and it'll take longer to add value back to the community. So at the moment, we have no contributing.md file and no content in it. So it's important to add value. Create the file and put one line in there. Any questions, start a GitHub discussion or raise an issue or whatever that one line is. But that adds value to the project and the community. We can get that accepted and merged in straight away. And then other people can get involved because they can all add another line. And now you're collaborating with other people. So don't try and make these huge changes and don't think they've got to be, 10 plus line. Like I have some people say, oh, I don't submit a pull request unless it has 10 changes in it, 10 lines of changes. I'm like, that's terrible. If each change kind of adds value and you can get it to the community sooner, do that. Obviously, you don't want to make it so small that it doesn't add value and it creates more admin for the project maintainers because, they're usually doing this on the side in addition to their job, in addition to their family and all the rest. And we're going to get why you should be a project maintainer too, and why you probably are already. I see the clock's ticking away, so let's have a look. Have I missed some questions in the chat? Discord how to, yeah. I don't know everything. I'm learning every day. Tips on how to find good projects for a beginner and friendly. Oh, Vanessa, great question. Let me share my screen real quick. Time is ticking away, but hopefully codebar people won't kick me out just yet. So let me share my screen. Hopefully you can see the screen behind me that way. Okay, so really, really good thing you can do. Hopefully this is big enough for you. When you go to your how to find issues. But before I get to that, I want to say, if you've customized your GitHub repo by creating your GitHub profile, by creating a repo, the same name as your username, you are a project maintainer. So this is my custom GitHub profile, but you are a maintainer and you'll learn so many different things. And I've got a section to come on to that in a second. But a great way to find issues are from your network, your community, and your friends to get involved in their projects. But also, if you go to the issues tab at the top, and hopefully I can see that. You can till 6:45, so no need to panic. Okay, cool, thank you. Okay, I'm just scrolling back up to the top to see the questions. So if you click on issues at the top, you get all the issues that I've created or assigned or mentioned. But if we remove this in the search bar, and we can search the whole of GitHub, so we could say maybe it's got a label. So we can say label good first issue and language JavaScript. So you can filter and you can do multiple languages if you wanted as well. You could, do JavaScript, TypeScript, or you can have multiple labels, good first issue, etc. and so forth. So now on GitHub, I don't know any of these repos, but they've got a good first issue and the repo contains JavaScript. And you can use Python or whatever you want. And you can go through and have a look. And when you find an issue or a project that you want to contribute to, let me just pick the first one. I don't know whose project this is. I'll pick the first one. So they've got a good first issue, and so a good way to get involved in the project. Maybe it uses technologies that you want, but some other tips that you need to look at is, there's three. Go to the Insights tab at the top, and then go to the Community tab and check that they've got a code of conduct, that they've got a contributing file, they've got a license. Do check those things. I think they are important. But even if they do have a code of conduct, there's no way to guarantee that it is enforced. So other thing you can do is go to the pull request. This is a bad example because they've got none. So let's just go back a page or two and back to the list. Let's pick the next one. Let's open a few of these just in case. So let's see, pull requests. Again, they have 2 closed. Okay, we could use this as an example. Yeah, this is actually a good example. So when you, behind my head, let me scroll that up. There we go. So it should be up there. Hopefully you could see that. Control-Alt-Delete. I saw that in the chat. Okay. Yes, so when you find a repo that you like, they've got a code of conduct, and they've got a contributing file, check how collaborative and inclusive they are in their projects. And what I mean by that is go to the pull request tab and then go to closed. And then you get 2 types of closed pull requests. You get ones that are merged, and you get the red ones, which is just above my head, which is closed. And that means they weren't accepted. Go have a look at that and see if it was closed in a friendly way, for example. So I think it was probably closed by a bot. Scroll all the way down. Wow, this is long. It looks like it was closed by a bot. But my point is, if you go to an issue and it's just been closed, not by the author, so the author of this is this person, but say it was closed by somebody else, like project maintainer, with no comment, and that's probably a project you don't want to contribute to because you might do a bit of work and they don't want it, they just close it. Whereas closing it is not a problem. If they close people's pull requests or issues, it's not a problem, but you want to contribute and get involved in a project where they put a comment saying, look, thank you so much for this contribution, but this is not a feature we want on the project. Why don't you look at issue 1, 2, and 3 or something like that? Then and they close it. Then at least they're encouraging people to contribute. It's just the contribution wasn't something they wanted, which is fine. But do check that it is an inclusive project because you don't want to be put off. And you can do the same with closed issues as well. Do have a look and see how they closed it. Was there so this was closed and it says it was solved by another issue, which is fine. So hopefully that helps. Anything else on GitHub you want me to have a look at, let me know. Okay, let me check the chat. So I think hopefully I answered that question, Vanessa. If you need more details, clarification, let me know and I'll catch up with the chat below. Anastasia, okay, great question. How to come with a person with suggestions and not sound arrogant. And again, this is practice, and I'm always improving and learning all the time. So sometimes people, especially the language barriers, or people are in a hurry or rushing, they might put like a one-liner. It might sound arrogant, it might be rude. Doing a nice smiley face might make it a bit more friendly, but sometimes the extra few seconds to reply to someone's comment, etc., or to write the comment does go a long way. And people, your future employers, your future colleagues will be looking at how you communicate with people. So it is important to try and always be positive. There's some really good blog posts on this. I'll try and dig some out later, and I can share them with all of you, because I need to read these regularly, because sometimes you forget, and each time I read it or watch a video on it, I pick up like a new tip every time. Okay. Lucas, adding value. I have lots of experience as a project manager in the public sector, but after 6 years, I'm burnt out. Any tips on how to successfully make a transition in tech? Great question. I think it's 2 great topics to cover there. One is how to get into tech, and one is burnout. Definitely don't burn out. And I've got some examples coming. I'll come back to that in a second. But in terms of transitioning into tech, you're already in tech. If you're a project manager, you're already in tech. If you're project managing tech projects, but most projects have some tech aspect to it. But I would get involved in the conversation, and you can add value. Your perspective, your experience can add value to a project. Most open source projects are not project managed, well. So you could start getting involved from that point of view and start getting involved in the tech. Because if you help people on the project management side, then they're going to want to help you on the tech side. It's kind of like a two-way street. So I would definitely recommend getting involved in the conversation. And then if you help people, people will want to help you. I do see sometimes in our Discord when, people say, oh, Eddie, you don't give me much help, but you give other people loads of help. It's like, because those people help other people. So when they need help, I'm definitely going to be there for them. But if you're always there just asking, asking and kind of taking and not helping other people, then people kind of have less time for you. So yeah, you kind of want to give back, and then they're going to want to help you. But also, if you can find out which area in tech you want to get involved in, then people can help you more. So the more specific your focus, the more specific your questions, people can help you better. Like if people say, how do I build an app? You're less likely to get a response wherever it is, on Twitter, on a meetup, or Discord, whatever it is. But if you ask a specific question, the more specific it is, then people are going to be able to help you more, because they can really focus on it rather than having a big, long discussion. Anastasia, how to find an open source project. Hopefully I showed that when I shared my screen a moment ago with the issues. If I didn't, write it again in the chat and I'll get back to that shortly. I'm just scrolling through the questions. We have to get back to the work-life balance and burnout stuff. That's so important. On topic of documentation, please hang around for next session. Okay, perfect, brilliant. Sounds good. Glad to see people will be hanging around. That's awesome. Okay, I think I'm slowly catching up with the chat. Wow, lots of great questions. I love this. What label you use on GitHub is a good first issue? Diana, what's the label? Also was replied. Love that. Do reply to each other's questions. Again, it's about collaborating with other people and people remembering your name and so forth. So it's really, really important. Yeah, good first issue. There is help wanted as well, but sometimes that's when people are stuck. So people use the labels not so strictly. So do have a look and check them out, but also have a look at your network and your community and what projects they're working on. And you can add value by improving people's customized GitHub profiles as well. And it helps you stand out if you customize your GitHub profile. So I highly recommend that. Hey, Nick, awesome to have you here. Cool. Thank you all so much. All right. Okay. Let me get back to my list of topics I would like to cover. Yeah, so imagine you're helping people on GitHub, you're using the same name across all your networks. Then the great thing is that if you apply to a role and someone recognizes your name, then they're gonna, you're gonna jump the list and say, well, I recognize this person, they added value to our open source project. So if you want to go work for a particular company, so I know some people have a specific company in mind, then I would recommend contributing to their open source project. I say contributing, I didn't say coding. You don't have to code. I mean, if you want to, that's great. It's a really good way to improve your coding, but just get started. And if you get involved in open source projects, then if you do apply to them, or if, even better, if they're looking to hire people, where are they going to go first? They're going to go to people who contribute to their open source projects. I know for my clients, government departments, high street banks in the UK, etc., when they say, Eddie, we want to grow the team, where can we hire some good people? I'm saying, look at your open source projects, because they know your open source project. They know how you collaborate, how things work. They can hit the ground from day one running. And so just add value to their projects and you'll really be on their radar. And wouldn't it be great that you don't have to job hunt, you don't have to ask for a pay rise and deal with recruiters and all the rest. You can get people who come to you. And I think that's just a great position to be in. And it takes time. But it'd be great if they can offer you the job, offer you the project, the freelance project, whatever it is. So, but one thing I want to make clear, talking about burnout and so on, don't think, right, this open source thing is great, I want to get involved. This weekend, I want to do 100 hours of open source. Because one, there isn't 100 hours in a weekend. I tried, it doesn't work. But also, it's not healthy for you, and you'll start, not enjoying it. If you burn out, then it's not great. And again, the community is so awesome for so many things. Like I said, you'll find mentors. You have to make it official, but everyone is your mentor. I can learn from all of you. And that's why I love being here. From your questions, I learn. And from people's answers to your questions, I also learn as well. So everyone is your mentor, and you are everyone's mentor. So don't think try and do 100 hours this weekend. Think of it like brushing your teeth. Little and often. If you fall asleep in front of the TV and you forget to brush your teeth, you're not going to wake up in the morning with yellow teeth and your teeth are falling out. You're not. They're going to be fine. But little and often, over the months and years and decades, your teeth remain healthy. And you've got to do the same with open source. You've got to do just little and often, and you just want to have that spread out. And if you miss a day, you miss a week, you miss a weekend, whatever it is, it's not the end of the world. Okay, what else? I've got so many topics. I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to try and skip some of them. Yes, I mentioned it's good for your mental health and so forth. Don't try and pull all-nighters. So I did mention there are two sides to open source. There's one contributing to someone else's project, and there is one sharing your own project and being a maintainer. You will learn so much, because when someone writes an issue and it doesn't make sense on your repo, you will think, oh, it doesn't make sense. I have to ask the question and have this long discussion, as I mentioned before. But then when you raise an issue in someone else's repo, you'll remember that and you'll think, right, let me give it context. And you'll just improve so much of your communication and collaboration skills. Please do customize your GitHub profile. You will immediately stand out. Now, I do have a template. So if you just kind of create new repo and have it the same name as your username, then it gives you a template. Just use that. That's to get started. And when you've got that, guess what? People can contribute to it and add improvements, put a link to your YouTube channel or whatever, their social links. They can add improvements to yours. But until you create that repo, until you create that file, then people can't contribute to your projects. Okay. What is should I take questions? How questions doing? I'm conscious of time. Some companies maintain open source projects as well as their commercial ones. So activity in the open source community is a really good way to get their attention. Exactly. Thank you, Simon. Hi, Simon. Thank you so much for that. Awesome point. Yeah, really, really important. And I mentioned, look at companies that you want to potentially work for, and don't try and contribute to the biggest projects. I see a lot of people saying, right, I'm going to get into open source. Eddie, how do I contribute to React? Because React's a buzzword. Everyone's talking about it. It's super exciting. That you'll get put off, not because it's React, but because the project's moving so fast. Like, imagine trying to understand an issue of what you need to do, the changes you need to make. By the time you've realized that and figured it out, then someone's already done the issue, it's already closed and gone. So you have to find another one. It's a bit disheartening. And then if you do manage to get an issue and you do manage to do the changes and the improvements, then you raise a pull request. By the time someone reviews it, maybe a day later, for example, then you might have conflicts because someone's made changes to that file on the same line for whatever reason. So now you got conflicts. And so they say, great pull request, thank you for the contribution, but can you fix the conflicts? So you see that a day after, for example, because you've got family, you've got work, etc. You solve the conflicts, and by the time they review it a day later, you've got more conflict, and you just get into this awful loop, and it's very disheartening. So I would definitely start with smaller projects and then work your way up to those bigger projects. You don't go to the gym and try and squat like 200 kilos. You'd start off with a much lower weight and work up to that. And it will help with, your form and your style and et cetera and so on. And, watching these talks is great. Watching YouTube videos, live streams, reading blog posts, whatever it is great. But watching someone do squats in the gym, there's only so much you can learn by watching. You actually just need to get on and do it. And you will learn so much by doing that. And you might think in your mind that you're doing, a great squat in the gym, but to you actually do it and get feedback, then you're gonna realize that there's more improvements that you can make, and you'll get better so much faster. You're not going to get a six-pack by watching people do sit-ups. You need to do the sit-ups yourself. So my point is just get started today. So we talked about filtering, so I'm going to skip over that. Whatever you're learning at the moment, whatever kind of hello world projects you're building, blog post, tutorial you're following, put that on GitHub, and don't try and masquerade it as if you're following a tutorial, put a link to tutorial in the README. Just be honest and transparent. It's really, really important. And another great way to make a tutorial work harder for you or work better for you, I suppose, get more benefits out of it. If they're creating, a blog post, maybe you should create a job post with different fields and different titles and so on, different routes, whatever it is you're doing, because you'll think about it. It will be in your brain a lot quicker. So just a kind of little side point. When you're creating your own repos, your own side projects, whatever you're doing, make sure you use the features on GitHub. Not all of the features, but things like issues, even if it's just you working on the project, labels, project boards, branches, and have good commit messages, because that will help you practice. Again, let's use the gym as an example. If you've got a gym and no one's there, you're not going to do really bad form and hurt your back doing squats. You're still going to try and do the best exercises you can to improve. So if it's your own project and no one's contributing yet, then make sure you do consistent commit messages. There are standards for these if you want to follow it. I highly recommend it. Same with the branches and naming conventions. Follow those standards. Use a linter, use prettier, whatever it is, use those for your projects, because you're more likely to get people to contribute. You'll learn a lot by doing it. And then when more people contribute, you will learn more too, because you'll be collaborating with other people. And then when people look at like companies, again, it looks more impressive. Okay, let me just check the chat and make sure I haven't missed anything. Oh, Nick, you're so awesome at always being, adding value. Love that. Conventional commits. Thank you so much for sharing that link. Perfect. Let me see what else we spoke about. Yeah, with your own projects, treat it like a real project, and learn Markdown. Definitely learn Markdown and use it. Try and look at your project from a different perspective. Okay, I think it's 45 minutes past 6. I'm gonna do a quick conclusion and hope there's some more questions in the chat, because I love questions. So to conclude, get involved in open source today, no matter where you are in your career or your journey. Even if you haven't started your career yet, you can get involved today. Your fresh pair of eyes will really, really help. And share your learnings on socials, on GitHub, or whatever it is. Share your journey as you go along. And think of it little and often, and think about adding value, because you will learn every time you get involved in the conversation. So I hope you enjoyed my talk. Any feedback, do let me know. Publicly, privately, I don't mind. I prefer publicly, but I really appreciate it, and I hope that helps. And I hope you all get involved in open source. My YouTube channel is about open source, so if you want to get more into open source, then join our live streams and our videos. And we have amazing people, like Nick, like Alex, like Siddharth in our Discord, and they're more than happy to help you. And to give you one more example, if I've got time, I'm looking at the chat, I've got one more example. So for example, I want to pick Siddharth as an example. And Siddharth is a student in India, if I remember correctly. Hopefully I'm right, Siddharth. But Siddharth goes to lots of talks online, lots of like talks like this. But one thing Siddharth does, which is unbelievably amazing, and even my clients who have looked at my GitHub projects and community, GitHub, we have a community organization, Eddie Jaoude, on GitHub, but has noticed and has mentioned Siddharth in our meetings and said, who is this person? They go to lots of talks online and they document what they've learned. And now Siddharth is standing out in front of the community, and my client is helping other people. And you know what? Let me just, hopefully I got time. Let me quickly share that to you. If I share my screen and just go to GitHub, and go to our organization, which you're welcome to join. And we have a support repo where you can log issues and discussions. But if you look discussions, I'm trying to find where it is. I see it by Siddharth, but it's amazing that the notes that are made are just awesome. Here we go. So Global Diversity CFP Day, you can see Siddharth has started a discussion with, about the day, a link to the event, again, adding context, as I said, but also each talk that Siddharth goes to, look, speaker, that's the description of the talk or their bio, etc., the aim, and Siddharth includes the takeaway and what was learned, and then the next talk. And this is a great way to add value to the community. And it's just amazing. The community is epic. You're all great, and it is for everybody. And so if you're a project manager, you're anywhere in tech, Nick is for an example, only joined tech, I think under a year ago. I think that's roughly correct. Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but Nick is a mod in our community, and also works for Free Code Camp, and it's just awesome and amazing. And I love that. And that's why I really believe tech is for everybody. Tech is for you. That's perfect timing, right? Let me see the chat as well. Hopefully I haven't missed too much or run too much over. Thank you for all the lovely feedback. I really, really appreciate it. Samantha, Florence, Shakira, awesome name. Vanessa, Jewel, Lawrence, thank you all so much. Nick, etc. Amazing feedback. Really, really appreciate it. And if you want to make me, that's made me so happy. But if you want to make me even more happy, start contributing to open source. Just raise a question on some of our community repos, and would love to chat with you.